Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LeBears Casino. Ronnie Rance alongside Tommy Krysan. TK joining us today from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. Tremonti's was closed like everybody on Wednesday, but back at it, been getting you ready for the weekend. I am at an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Go to lasportshall.com. We actually punted on our release for our 2025 class. Instead of doing it on September 11th, we will do it on September 18th because of the storm. And of course, we were presented by LeBears Casino. LeBears Casino, where TK and Derry Beckwith and all will be tomorrow for Sports Shorts radio, which will be 9 to 11 a.m., 9 to 11 a.m. due to the early kickoff. We're moving it up an hour. I'll be joining them from the Big D, Dallas, Texas. Hunter McCann will be joining us as well for a segment, and Joel Davis and a whole lot more. Tune in tomorrow morning on 104.5 ESPN at LeBears Casino. They'll be at the ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Tommy was cashing that winning ticket last night as he had the Buffalo Bills on the money line against the Miami Dolphins, 31-10. The Bills knocked off the Dolphins. No sweat on your money last night, and Buffalo looked good. They're expected to be one of the top teams in the AFC East. They're a Super Bowl contender, one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the AFC preseason. What we wanted to find out was about the Dolphins. They got off to the slow start against Jacksonville, ended up winning on a last-second field goal at the big fourth quarter to come back and win at home. We know all the controversy that transpired last week with Tyreek Hill when he was on his way to the ball game and got pulled over and detained, and all the video. That was the talk all week, and maybe it was a little bit of a distraction because they definitely did not play last night. And a guy who did not play well was Tua, who threw 3 picks, didn't look good, and then, oh, by the way, didn't get the chance at the comeback because in the late third quarter, he left the game with a concussion, a very serious concussion, it looked like initially, his reaction. And now this is multiple concussions, and his future in football, not just this week, is a question mark.
Yeah, it was really tough to watch, and seen a lot of comments today, and Dan Patrick's show opened with it this morning. He's married, he's got a couple little kids, so you start thinking, life is more important than football. And, in 10 years, can he play in the yard with the kids? I mean, and the concussion thing is a very serious thing, especially once you have a concussion, you're more susceptible to getting another one. And then they start piling on. And, you go back to the decades ago, all the NFL guys who claimed they had 50 concussions or 100 concussions, and then many of them have had issues mentally and physically. And so, it becomes a medical thing. And here's the thing, Ronnie, he just got a big contract. And if the doctor says, you're cleared to play, but he decides not to, he forfeits that contract. So you're getting into, things, but first and foremost should be the well-being of Tua, and how's he going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, his quality of life. Because you got a lot of NFL players. And Andrew Whitworth, the former LSU Tiger, he said it last night on TV. He said, surgeries can fix a lot of things. You can fix an ankle. You can fix an arm. You fix a knee, a shoulder. You can't fix the brain with this concussion thing. It's a higher level of an injury. It's its own category. And I remember just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my grandson who was playing football at St. Paul's on the 8th grade team, and they had to do the concussion thing, like they had to set the baseline so that they get their bell rung, and I was explaining to him how it goes, and then he called me up. He said, "Pops, that's exactly what they did." I said, "Well, that's standard, and they're doing that for 8th grade football." And I know I think all the high schools have some form of it. It's a big story, for Tua, number one, and then for other guys that have had the concussions, and everybody's got a thought and an opinion, but I think the medical facts will speak for themselves, whether he can play or not, or whether he wants to play again. I mean, that's another part of it. Does he want to play again?
Well, I would say that, probably 95% of NFL football players are going to want to play. They're going to want to push the envelope. The thing about the concussions that's so much different than all those other injuries that you described is that a lot of times with these concussions, after a couple weeks, you feel fine, right? That's, there's not a scar on your arm. There's not an ankle brace you're wearing. There's not, a couple weeks in, you feel fine. You feel like you're 100%. Although, like what you said, once you have a concussion, you're more susceptible to get it again and again and again. And that's what we're seeing with Tua. They're coming, they're happening. And so it may be a situation where, even with all the information that these NFL players have, we know now more about the brain and the effects of football now than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But even with all that said, they may sign a waiver and they may still say, hey, I want to play, and so at what point does the NFL come in, the Players Association, the teams, at what point do they come in and say, as much as you want to play, we're not going to allow you to play? That's the hard one. Now, if that happens, if it's a medical situation, then you get into, you get into a medical settlement. You get into insurance paying a percentage of the contract, all these types of things. It's the same as if, for example, Wendell Davis, Wendell Davis caught a pass, came down, broke, dislocated and broke both of his knees on the turf in Philadelphia, and ended up suing Philadelphia. Didn't play anymore, but ended up suing the Eagles and Veterans Stadium and all that kind of stuff in the NFL or whatever, and got a big medical settlement early from the wide receiver from St. Martinville who played 20 years ago for LSU. He is getting like $150,000 a year for the rest of his life because of injuries and things sustained, career-ending type injuries while playing in the NFL. So all those are options. I'm really curious to see what happens here, and we don't know the legalities of how it all works, but it does seem, Tommy, that if the Miami Dolphins want to take that out, if the NFL wants to take that out and say, hey, look, yes, we're the Dolphins. We just signed you to a mega contract, but we're not comfortable with moving forward with you as our quarterback due to these concussions. We don't think it's the right thing for you, and we're scared you're going to die on our field. We don't want to allow that. I do feel like we're getting to that point where there's enough body of evidence to support they're going with that, even if it's also a way to get out of that contract because they're not sold on, A, is he good enough to honor that contract? And B, hey, we gave you this contract. We expect you to be on the field. And if you're not going to be on the field and it's not really working out, then we probably need to go in a different direction. So this will be an extremely interesting month down in South Florida to see what transpires next.
Well, the old saying, the best ability is availability. Okay. And they
Right.
gave him all this money. Is he available, to play? Will the doctors clear him? Can he, and if the doctor clears him, then does he choose? I think if the doctor clears him, he's going to say, yeah, I want to play. And that's just a guess by me, because they all have that mentality. I want to play. We've heard players in the past say, when they got their bell rung, they start grabbing their knee or their ankle. So people would maybe talk about that and not the fact that I think Hines Ward did that so he could stay in the game. And Tua, limping last night, was that calculated? Like, okay, it's not my head, but he put his head down, ran into DeMar Hamlin, ironically the guy from the Bills who died on the field a couple of years ago. But he lowered his head because he's a competitor and he's trying to get the first down or yardage or whatever it is. And once you between them lines, there's a different mentality that 99% of the fans can't understand. And to succeed and do well and help your team, you're right. The next month and maybe longer is going to be very interesting in the NFL with regards to Tua, concussions in general, the whole bit. I mean, a lot of these rules in football have been changed because there's a stack of lawsuits on the NFL's desk in New York about concussions and physical things dating back 15, 20 years ago. But like you said, they didn't have the knowledge they have now about this. I mean, it's a scary thing. It really is.
That goes to show you, even with all the injuries and the concussion conversation and everything that's going around with Tua, here he is still. It's in his DNA to put his head down as opposed to sliding, or as opposed to running out of bounds, or opposed to, just, going down a different way. Like, you can't change that. That you can't change if you're, that football mentality where now, we're taught not to lower the head. And it's like, easier said than done, even with Tua and everything he's got to lose. And they have talked to him ad nausea about sliding and don't getting hit and how to take a hit and all this stuff. And there he is, still got to put the head down.
Again, it changes when the ball's snapped. It's easy to say on Thursday morning, hey, do it. Don't forget, if you get past the line of scrimmage, slide, go feet first. Or if you're about to get hit in the backfield, throw it in row 2. We don't want you to be hurt. But then that changes when the ball's snapped.
Well, one of the things that's going to change is the Miami Dolphins' outlook for the rest of their season if they don't have Tua, and it doesn't look like they're probably going to have him for at least a week or two at minimum. They're going to miss a couple games because they're going to be super cautious on this. A team that probably should have not only put their head down, but just not even gotten on the bus was the Northwestern State Demons, who took a bus from Natchitoches, Louisiana, all the way to Mobile, Alabama, to go play South Al last night. And all they did was proceed to get beat 87-10. Even all the great and bad Hal Mummy teams never lost 87-10, and how bad ones over the years. But
South there was Alabama, a bad one at Northwestern State one night. I think Northwestern State scored 84. You were on the radio TV call. I was on the radio call of that game. By the way, South Alabama plays LSU in a couple of weeks. Think they'll get 87?
No. But the line just went up. I can whatever it was. A point got added today. That's in 2 weeks. This Saturday, LSU will be hosting South Alabama. I would say that this was, and look, South Alabama, I think, called off the Dogs. I don't think they scored with. It was
one touchdown in the fourth quarter.
5 or 4.
One touchdown in the fourth quarter they scored.
Yeah, one touchdown in the fourth quarter. Yeah. So they scored 80 in the 3 quarters. So it wasn't like they were just being ridiculous with running up the score. Hey, it just goes to show you the difference between, a bad Southland Conference team and Division I football, a bowl team in Division I football. If teams wanted to put their foot on the throat, this is what they could have done. Now, same conference, Nichols came into Tiger Stadium and only lost by 23 or whatever. So it goes to show you the difference between a good Southland Conference team and maybe a not so good Division I team right now. But that was wild, man. I feel bad for Northwestern State. McCorkle's their first-year head coach. He's a former LSU Tiger, played long snapper, was a long snapper for LSU in the mid-'90s, late '90s. Great guy, had some success at Belhaven, is in his first year. Northwestern State, over the last 4 years, has been one of the worst teams in college football. And if you remember last year, they had the controversy of they ended their season, didn't play like their last 5 or 6 games of the season because they had a player shot and killed a linebacker who was hurt and out, but he was still attached to the team. And he was one of the team leaders. Well, they come to find out that there was some drug issues and it's a sketchy story. And his family was kind of, threatening to sue or whatever. They're threatening to sue the coaches because they claim that he wanted out from the roommate because the roommate killed him. I mean, it's the 60-minute story that will probably be a Netflix documentary one day. It was drama filled. They ended up firing the coaches. They ended up the players not playing the last 5-6 weeks because they had a drug issue on the team as well. It was a mess. So it's not going to get fixed right away over at Northwestern State, but they took 2 paycheck games, Tommy. They went on the road to Tulsa, and then they played South Alabama as well. So 2 paycheck games, and they did beat Grambling week 1 at home, but they have gotten their brains beat in the last couple of weeks. And I'm sure they are looking forward to being done with those paycheck games.
Yeah, probably so. Tough sledding for football up in Natchitoches.
Speaking of football, the Tulane Green Wave are being, they're like the hot new girl in high school. They are being courted by a surprise person.
The Pac-12 added 4 teams this week. scheduled to be officially added in 2026. And they got to get to 8 to be recognized as a conference and had the playoff game and all that. And Tulane was on the list of teams that they're going to target to join the Pac-12. And it was funny. The Atlantic Coast Conference. Somebody said they got to change it to any coast conference, and you got the Pac-12. It's got, they got to redo some names. The Big Ten's got what 20 teams in it. I mean, whatever. But Tulane was on that list as a possible team that they would like to consider going into the Pac-12. Tulane plays at Oklahoma this week, so it was they hung in there with Kansas State last week. Bad call. Some people think cost them the game. Might have. Definitely had an impact or a non-call. But anyway, so we'll see what happens with Tulane with that. Again, in the sports, you can't be surprised by anything anymore. Tulane in the Pac-12.
Oregon State and Washington State are holdovers from the old Pac-12. Who are the 4 teams that they rated from the Mountain West?
Colorado State, Fresno State, Boise State. I think the other one was San Diego State. They all had state in their name because they were saying if Tulane would change their name to Tulane State, they would get in. But no, somebody just being funny. But yeah, so they're trying to keep the Pac-12 going and raid the Mountain West Conference. So what does that do to the Mountain West? They're going to be looking for people. So just
how this is going to make sense. I mean, obviously it comes down to, if you're Tulane, it comes down to dollars and cents, where we're at versus where, I mean, obviously the travel is going to be just through the roof if they do join the Pac-12, because everything's going to be, for the most part, West Coast, unless they go get somebody else that we're not thinking of over here. But the bottom line is it's going to be tremendous expense with travel. And they're going to have to do the math and see if hey, is it worth it? The thing about it, where they're at currently and what Tulane's doing currently is, I mean, there's no real rivalry games, for Tulane, right? Like there's nothing that moves the meter at the box, or, oh, we're playing that team, so therefore the gym's going to be packed for the basketball game. So they don't need to look at it from that perspective anymore. It's simply a dollars and cents. Prestige, does it help us get recruits because we're in the Pac-12? And the reality is that if you're in a Power 5 conference, then it should on paper. And can you afford to be in the Pac-12? What will their TV contracts and estimations and all and look like? And does it make us millions and millions of dollars to go that route? So
well, and you talk about the travel, and it's not the football travel, it's the soccer, the volleyball, the swim team, the baseball team, softball team. I mean, that's where, the travel is not, football is not the travel issue, it's the rest of it. But it's becomes a dollars and cents thing that they want Tulane, because then you have the New Orleans market because they're going to try to get TV rights. Well, New Orleans market is not that big. What's it, the 85th largest market, whatever. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, it's part of the craziness of the landscape of professional college sports.
Speaking of college sports, Deion Sanders, in the news, we were going to talk about it on Wednesday, ran out of time, but the Colorado Buffaloes story, I mean, what a difference a year makes. I mean, a year ago, the Colorado Buffalo brand was the hottest brand in sports. It was the number one topic in college football. It was the story of the year. And to me, it was still the story of the year, the up and the down of Colorado football. And now they are threatening to be irrelevant, other than now there's no celebrities at their games on their sidelines. Yes, has Deion Sanders and Colorado impacted, is Colorado making more money this year? Absolutely. Tickets are selling. Internally, it's still a big story. Internally, they're making more money, more donations. They're making, they're filling the stadium and all that. More season tickets than ever and all that. But nationally, the question is, how much longer is Deion Sanders going to stay the coach at Colorado? How much longer is Colorado going to stay with this? Do you want to have that image? You're selling your soul to a certain extent. Yes, we're becoming relevant. We're making money. We're, but you kind of turn it into a little bit of a clown show with the off the field stuff going on right now with Colorado.
Yeah, and then every time they should really stop press conferences for a couple of weeks. Dion comes out and says, "I've been on the cross for a year and a half." He's implying that he's been crucified by the media. Okay, and then his son, who had a bad day at quarterback, left the game early, and of course they said it was to get medically treated. He blamed everything on his offensive line. He's look at the other quarterback. He's not running for his life. He didn't get touched. It's just it's a mess. It went from, as you said, arguably the top story. We talked about it every week on Sports Shorts Radio last year, the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. Everybody talked about it, wrote about it, social media about it. And now you're right. It's become a clown show. It's become nothing of what it was. And it remains to be seen what will exactly happen. Now, they play Colorado State this week on the road, and they're a 7-point favorite. Colorado State had them beat last year in Boulder, and the Buffaloes had to come back late and get the win. And they've got a lot of injuries there. A lot of teams, including LSU's, got some injuries they got to deal with. Injuries are all part of it, as we know. So it's interesting how that story unfolds going forward.
Well, what I don't understand is I would have thought Colorado's offensive line would have been good this year because, that was supposedly going to be the point of emphasis all offseason. As with the transfer portal and NIL, and the fact that your son Shador is the quarterback who's going to be a first round pick, top 10 pick. Why didn't you go put all your resources into getting a good offensive line? Like it's only your fault. It's only your fault that and when I say your fault, I mean Deion Sanders. Inevitably, he's the head coach. It's last year your offensive line was terrible, and you saw your son run around for his life and all that kind of stuff, and still had a great year for him. And when he does have time, he's arguably the best quarterback in college football, if not one of the top 2 or 3. So why didn't you make that a point of emphasis? You know what I mean? Why didn't you take whatever resources you have and go buy offensive linemen? Like I don't, and I'm sure they tried, and I don't know the ins and outs of Colorado recruiting. I know early on they showed all these commitments and all these big names, and they were going to be much better. Clearly, a lot of those fell through. But I haven't stayed on top of it. But it's really their own fault. If Deion can't go get offensive linemen when he has his son at quarterback, who is a first round pick, who if this guy has time, our offense can go, and you can't get it done, then you ain't going to get it done when he's in the NFL next year either. And the question becomes, is Deion Sanders going to be the head coach of Colorado next year? And I think they're on their way to having a bad year again and having a losing season again. And without his sons at Colorado next year, which one of them's hurt with, I think, a broken arm or something. The other is going to be playing quarterback in the NFL. Like it feels like this could be a 2-year and done deal for Deion, because he doesn't need the money. He's not doing it for the money. He's doing it for the passion. He's doing it for the love. And it feels like this is going to be a lot hard. This is a lot harder than he ever dreamed it would be.
Really was, and he's lowering his value. There was when they were 3-0, everybody's like, okay, he'll be the next coach at Florida State or an SEC school. He's lowering his value significantly now as far as what his next coaching job might be. But it was a meteoric rise, and now it's been a spiral downward since, and no real reason to think that it's going to get better, even though they might very well beat Colorado State this weekend. A lot of eyes will be on that score. There's not a lot of super duper games this weekend. I guess LSU, South Carolina, we'll talk to about in a minute is, and Alabama at Wisconsin, and there's a handful of matchups that got people's attention, but we'll see, man. It's college football. It's wild and crazy.
Listen, not to bang on Deion too much. What he did for HBCUs and what he did for Jackson State is you can't put a price tag. I mean, he transformed a university. He transformed and made relevant again HBCUs. Unfortunately, not sustainable. It was a short period of time, and that it's kind of come and gone sort of thing. But even if he only did it for 2 or 3 years, and it only helped for 2 or 3 years, he helped for 2 or 3 years. No one else was. And then what he did, Colorado is the Northwestern state of their conference, right? I mean, like, it left for dead. And when he's gone over there, their facilities have improved. He's infused millions and millions of dollars. The enrollment's up. Like, so again, even if it's a 2-3 year burst of revenue and interest and all, he's made that school a better job for the next guy. So and made it relevant. I mean, we're talking about Colorado football. They were like the #1 merchandise sold last year. I mean, like, all these things. Again, even if it's just a comet, it came and went. What he's done for these people is tremendous, and he's done it without really robbing the bank. He's not doing it to give me $10 million. He's not out there like trying to get as much money as he possibly can for himself. He's also getting money for his assistants, and he's spreading the. So he's got the right intentions. I just don't know that it looks like it's not going to work over there, barring a miracle turnaround. And I don't think he's going to stick around to try to fix it and find out. One last thing to talk about today before we sign off and tune in tomorrow, by the way, for Sports Shorts Radio. Plethora of guests, 9 to 11 a.m. on 104.5. We'll take you right up until kickoff at 11. LSU, South Carolina Tigers, a 7-point favorite in a lot of places now, not just 7.5. LSU baseball released its entire schedule yesterday. We know they've got a brutal 10-week schedule in the SEC. Some of those highlighted road games are at Texas, which I've already got that on my calendar. I'll be in Austin. That's going to be a tremendous series. Their first road series is Texas. Their first home series of the year is Missouri. So they'll go at Texas in the SEC in March. Then they go to Oklahoma the first week of April. Back-to-back road series are going to be Texas and Oklahoma in SEC play. And then you go later in the year to South Carolina to Paul Maneri. So all three of those series, if unless I can't do it, I will be there, because I've never been to Oklahoma to Norman. I want to go see that. Coach Todd Butler's an assistant coach at Oklahoma. I want to go see Cam Johnson. Can he get it fixed up there? And they want to go see the young man from Barb, the right-hander that had off-field issues, got kicked off of Barb's team last year, supposed to be the best pitcher in the state of Louisiana. He's now at Oklahoma. So there's some storylines. I want to go to Oklahoma, go check that out. Obviously, LSU at Texas is going to be a huge series and a good time in Austin. And then go see Paul Maneri, who's going to be so uncomfortable hosting LSU and LSU and their fans. And, I mean, that's going to be, Paul hates coaching against his former assistants. He's surely going to hate coaching against LSU at home. So those are three storylines. LSU plays Dallas Baptist in Arlington at Globe Life, where the Rangers play in a midweek game. I'll be at that one. That's in February. And then they also have a 3-game series at Round Rock, which is right outside of Austin, Texas, where they'll play Sam Houston. They'll play – I forget who else they've got on that schedule.
Nebraska, Sam Houston, and Kansas State.
Okay, there you go. So they've got –
not in that order. I did the order out of it, but that's the teams. That's
a great road trip to bond the team. You go to Dallas to play DBU, who's a very good team, always a regional team, an Omaha contender. It's a great thing to play them, and then also to go over and Round Rock and play. So that's a great 4 games on the road that you're going to play. And then you've got 3 really interesting road trips that we just discussed. They do not play Ole Miss this year, which is shocking. Play Mike Bianco and Ole Miss. It's kind of like not LSU football, not playing Mississippi State for the first time in like 100 years or whatever. But, Tommy, their non-conference home schedule in the months of February and March is atrocious.
It's bad. Schools are now. They opened the season with Purdue at Fort Wayne. I don't know their nickname. I don't know their school colors.
That's Purdue.
Huh? No, it's Purdue at Fort Wayne. Okay, I mean, come on. And then you got Omaha. You got Omaha University or college, whatever they are. And then you got North Alabama. Oh, gee. North Dakota State, who that'll be the first time they see the sunshine probably in green grass. And then your midweek games, all your state schools are in there. I see the Raging Cajuns. I see Nichols, McNeese, Southeastern, Northwestern State, Tulane. You got all of that mixed in there too. But anyway, I got the schedule printed. I got a copy of it. We'll be diving into that. Hey, Ronnie, LSU, South Carolina tomorrow. The last time LSU tied a football game, where it ended in a tie, was at South Carolina under Jerry DiNardo in 1995. So, it was settled at. I can't get excited about LSU's chances to win. I think it'll be a low-scoring, close game. Could be a field goal at the buzzer. Could be an overtime game. I mean, I just can't. I don't know. I'm just not feeling the Tigers going into Columbia and getting the win. Noon kickoff over there on the Eastern time, but I don't know. I think if you want to bet, you take South Carolina and the points.
Yeah, you know, it definitely feels like LSU's running into a trap situation here. The fans, the crowd, they're feeling great about themselves after last week. They have game day, which is going to bring a buzz and electricity to that stadium. Now, they probably need the game day because noon. It's a noon Eastern start. Noon's tough. I don't care if you used to playing in a day or not. Noon's tough, but you got game day to get you going. To get you to help get you there. Um, and LSU looked so lackadaisical last week against Nichols, and of course we know what their defense did in the last 7 minutes of the SC game. It looked to me like the defense carried that over, that lackluster approach to last week against Nichols. That 7 minutes carried over. We know they've got some injuries to contend with on that D line, so. Again, I'm not going to bet this one. I'm just going to be a fan and hope LSU squeaks it out and wins by one. But it definitely is a huge game that we did not see coming before the season. We thought this was going to be LSU going to take care of business over in South Carolina. They're not very good this year, although they have a couple of good NFL players. This is one where it's like, your whole season depends on this game. Because if you lose this game, there's other losses that are clearly on your schedule coming. If you win this game, then all of a sudden, okay, we showed a little something. We're back.
And I look forward to Derry Beckwith on Sports Shorts Radio tomorrow morning breaking down the game. He's right more than not, breaking down the game. National championship linebacker. He works for the LHSAA network with high school football. So Derry Beckwith will be, with me on the radio tomorrow. And you want to get his insight. He views the game a little differently because he's a national championship linebacker. So I'm looking forward to hearing what Derry says about the game. And I'll throw what you said. Is this a trap game, Derry? You played 4 years at LSU. Did y'all have a trap game? I mean, he's going to be really good on the radio tomorrow morning.
Usually we think of trap games as being like a Nichols at home or something, or like a Ole Miss after an Alabama game is a trap game.
Troy 5 years ago.
Right. When I say the word trap, I'm not referring to it in those terms. I'm referring to it in you didn't see beyond 8 days ago or a week ago that this game was going to have this juice to it, that South Carolina was going to be maybe this good, that this all of a sudden ESPN game day is going to be there, and now it's the national game of the week. Like, you didn't see that until 7 days ago. So that's what I'm referring to as you got to change everything you're thinking, because when they planned out this schedule, when they looked at this schedule, they're circling Ole Miss at home and Alabama at home, A&M on the road, not South Carolina 11 a.m. Central Time kick, ESPN game day. This came out of nowhere. All right, TK, tell us about Tremonti's.
Yeah, you can load up for the weekend wine and liquor and the ribeye rolls, the shrimp rolls, everything you need is here at Tremonti's on Jefferson Highway in Baton Rouge. Connect on Instagram, connect on Facebook. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. Big catering jobs all weekend. They can cater your office gang. You want to just do something different for lunch, check it out. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. Tomorrow, Saturday, the barbecue rib special for lunch. They usually sell out, so get in here and get it done at Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. As always, like and share this show. We appreciate that very much. And don't forget radio tomorrow morning. Derry Beckwith and I will have Ronnie on the phone. We'll have Hunter McCann tomorrow for Sports Shorts Radio. As we always say, like and share this show on behalf of everybody here at Tremonti's and Ronnie Rance. I'm Tommy Krysan. Have a great day, everyone.